Your Excellency, Professor Boediono, Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, Your Excellencies, the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia, dear rectors of the Universitas Indonesia and the Universitas Gadjah Mada, dear Mr. Manco Subroto, dear mayors of the cities of Leiden and Wassenaar, dear colleagues and friends. It's my great pleasure to welcome you, Professor Boediono, here in the old Academy building in Leiden. We are tremendously proud that you have accepted our invitation to give your lecture during your visit to the Netherlands. In the glass-stained window for your view right, you see a portrait of Prince William of Orange, the man who founded this university nearly 440 years ago during our struggle of independence against the King of Spain. And as you might know, in 1575, Prince William offered this university to the citizens of Leiden as a reward for having withstood a long siege by the Spanish. Leiden was the first university in the Netherlands to practice freedom of belief and religion, and this is reflected in our university's motto, Praesidium Libertatis, Bastion of Liberty. Liberty, freedom, these concepts are by no means self-evident. You yourself, Your Excellency, have just returned from the summit in The Hague, where the leaders of the world were invited to talk about a safer world, but a city which, as a result of all the necessary safety measures, looked more like a war zone itself. Today, however, you're here to give a speech at the university without the need of protecting Scud missiles on the roof of this former nunnery. More than many other institutions, universities are places where freedom flourishes. Our university has a long-standing relationship with Indonesia, dating all the way back to the early years of the 17th century. The glass-stained window I just referred to shows some famous professors of our university, and one of them is Cornelis van Vollenhoven, the legal scholar who worked to preserve and study Indonesian adat law, so Indonesian customary law. There is so much one could say about Leiden's relationship with Indonesia. A number of young Indonesian students at Leiden University belonged to the early nationalist movement of Indonesia, and they understood the meaning of Praesidium Libertatis even better than some of their professors. One of these Indonesian students was Sultan Hamengkubuwono IX. He studied at Leiden between 1936 and 1939, and he made a vital contribution to the struggle for Indonesia's independence. It is with great pleasure that I mention Sultan Hamengkubuwono, since just a few weeks ago I visited the Kraton in Yogyakarta, and I presented his son, the present Sultan, with a diploma in appreciation of his father's accomplishments at our university. Leiden and Indonesia also share a long history of collaboration in the PhD cycle. The Hendrick Scholarship program plays a very important role in this collaboration. It provides excellent Indonesian students with an opportunity to pursue a PhD education in Leiden. A few months ago, we celebrated that 100 years ago, the first Indonesian scholar to receive his doctorate in Leiden was Hussein Jayadiningrat, a story that began approximately 110 years ago when it became apparent that Hussein would not be admitted to the colonial judiciary in spite of his brilliance and the request of his influential brother, and that he would therefore not be able to come to Leiden to study law. A plain injustice resulting from prejudices on the part of the Dutch colonial government and based on arrogance and ignorance. And it's therefore also a great pleasure that we also can welcome his son here today. To further celebrate that particular occasion, we have asked the sculptor Aart Schonk to design a small statue of Hussein. And I've seen the preliminary version of the work, and I must say that it has turned out to be a moving memorial representing not only Hussein, but also a long tradition of Indonesian-Dutch PhD collaboration. I would like to ask you after your speech to do us the honor of unveiling this little statue. Your Excellency, Leiden University is not only keenly aware of its past, it's also primarily looking forwards to its future. With regards to Indonesia, we've developed some important study programs. A vibrant program on Indonesian languages and cultures, our Van Vollenhoven Institute for Law and Governance, as well as other programs in which we work together with the RCEP National in Jakarta, LIPI, UI, UGM, and the Ministries of Education and Culture and of Religious Affairs. As a university, we are very eager to strengthen our relations with the Republic of Indonesia and its academic institutions. A few weeks ago, you were so kind to invite us to your office in Jakarta, where we had a very pleasant talk. It was part of the visit of a large-scale delegation of Leiden University. It was an extremely fruitful trip to a country which has become a genuine democracy with a growing economy, also thanks to your leadership. And this is exactly what makes this day so special for us. And I would like to repeat that it's a great honor for me to once again welcome you here at Leiden University. Mr. Vice President, the floor is yours.
Professor Stolker, Professor Van den Doel, Mayor of Leiden, Mayor of Wassenaar, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is the greatest pleasure for me to speak here in the Academy building of the Leiden University. Leiden is not only the oldest and foremost university of the Netherlands, but also one of the oldest traditions in the world of studying Indonesia. I've done a bit homework here. One of your most famous professors in the 19th century was Hendrick Kern, who was born in Java in the town of Purworejo. His work has been very important for Indonesia. Professor Kern proved that all languages in the Indonesian archipelago are related to each other, and that one could speak of one Indonesian people. He also translated the Nagara Kertagama and proved that the Empire of Majapahit had roughly the same size as the Dutch East Indies. Later in time, these were all very important findings for the Indonesian nationalist movement. In 1877, Leiden University established chairs for Javanese, Malay, Islamic, and colonial law, and history and geography of the Indonesian archipelago. It was the start of a tradition which still flourishes today. Many Indonesian students studied at this institution. The first Indonesian to receive a doctorate, as the rector mentioned, was Professor Hussein Jayadiningrat. He did it at Leiden University 101 years ago, and I'm looking forward to meet with his son after the lecture. It is also worth mentioning that it was here in Leiden that a student named Raden Mas Noto Suroto, founded in 1908, was not called then Indonesian Student Society, but something a bit else, but later on it became Perhimpunan Indonesia, the first movement to use the word Indonesia in its name. One of the founders of the Republic of Indonesia, Muhammad Hatta, was chairman of the Perhimpunan Indonesia. I'm happy that representatives of the present-day Perhimpunan Pelajar Indonesia in the Netherlands are here in the Academy building today. Ladies and gentlemen, Leiden University remains one of the foremost research hubs on Indonesia in the world. It is good to be here, Professor Stolker, after your visit to Indonesia last month. During the visit, your distinguished delegation had strengthened Leiden's relations with Universitas Indonesia and Universitas Gadjah Mada, also with Lembaga Ilmu Pengetahuan Indonesia, LIPI, and Arsip Nasional Republik Indonesia. And last but not least, with your Indonesian alumni, the ambassadors of your university in my country. I understand that Leiden University will soon be represented in Jakarta by the KITLV. I hope this permanent presence of Leiden in Indonesia will be a stepping stone for further fruitful cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to share with you my view on the main challenges that Indonesia faces in order to sustain its economic and political transformation. Well, it has become an undisputed fact that Indonesia is now a dynamic emerging economy, ranked the 16th in the world, as well as a thriving new democracy, the world's third largest. My perspective will inevitably be influenced by my own specific experience as an economic policy practitioner in the country for more than 30 years now. But before I go any further, I would like to make explicit my basic premise. And that basic premise is that Indonesia's continued economic progress is not only dependent on factors related to the economy, but equally, if not even more importantly, hinges on Indonesia's success in consolidating and institutionalizing its political system, its democracy. In reality, economic progress and democratic consolidation are intertwined. One very much dependent on the other. Here, I would like to focus on three problem areas, which, in my view, will constrain progress if they are not satisfactorily resolved. The three hurdles are infrastructure, human capital, and public institutions. Without significant improvements in these three areas, Indonesia may be condemned to linger in a middle-income trap and perennial transition to democracy for decades to come. Well, let me give you brief statistics. Indonesia is the largest economy in Southeast Asia. In 2004 through 2013, some one decade period, growth averaged 5.9% per year. Total GDP during that decade increased 170%. GDP per capita jumped from 2,700 US dollar to 4,500 US dollar, both in constant 2005 PPP dollar. Yet, in spite of robust growth, Indonesia is at risk of falling into the position of being squeezed between low-wage producers and highly skilled, fast-moving innovators, the middle income trap. The economic answer to that problem is quite straightforward. That is structural reform, a shift of resources into higher productivity activities. But the shift is not as simple as it sounds. It is about creating incentives to save, to accumulate physical and human capital, and to innovate so that new products and processes, new ways to do things, and better ideas can emerge and be sustained. It's very important, be sustained. In the more fancy terms, becoming endogenous in the system. This rise in productivity, though, will be sustained if, and only if, it is anchored in social and political environments conducive to such process. In the rest of my lecture, I will focus on the three priority areas that I mentioned earlier, and underline specifically on how each should be shaped or prioritized in a way that would ensure sustainability of Indonesia's economic and political transformation. Let me first talk about the infrastructure. Currently, the most glaring constraint is infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Indonesia urgently needs more infrastructure investment in all fronts: energy, power, transportation, including airports, ports, rails, roads, communications, including telephones, mobiles, broadbands, and very basic infrastructure like water and sanitation. Before the Asian financial crisis of 1997-98, infrastructure investment in Indonesia had reached over 7% of our GDP. But more than a decade after, it has struggled to reach 3 to 4% of our GDP. Lack of infrastructure has hampered Indonesia's engagement in the global supply or production chains, where efficient logistics, assembly, distribution, and information technology and marketing are at its very heart. Lack of infrastructure has limited Indonesia's ability to move up the value chains and to gain productivity through cheap imported inputs. Indonesian manufacturing firms are struggling to compete in export markets, while at home they face fierce competition from imports. Ladies and gentlemen, CLSA, an independent consulting firm, revealed that in Indonesia, logistic costs reach 27% of GDP, the highest in the region. This is due to insufficient railways, roads, long dwelling time at seaports, creating serious congestion, and so forth. Let me give you some example. Railway length has barely expanded in the last 20 years. Road density was only 0.27 kilometer per square kilometers, and the dwelling time at key seaports reached 7 days compared to 5 and 4 days in Thailand and Malaysia, respectively. Traffic congestion increases fuel consumption, forces people to spend more hours to commute, and creates air pollution causing significant harm to public health. In short, deficient infrastructure imposes high costs to the economy and to the society. Within the theme of accelerating infrastructure development, there is, in my view, one particular area that should be given the highest priority, namely improving domestic connectivity. Being an archipelagic nation, special attention should be given to the inter-island connectivity. Quality fruits and spices produced by our farmers or good catch by our fishermen cannot reach our cities because of irregular service of ships, poor roads, and congestion. Tradable products have become non-tradable at home. Even if they can, farmers and fishermen must rely on the middlemen and receive only a small fraction of the final price. Domestic connectivity is fundamental, not only for economic growth, but also for national cohesion and even survival. Improving international connectivity while neglecting domestic connectivity would, in my view, threaten social and political cohesion. People living in urban areas do not only make more money, but they also enjoy cheaper products due to proximity to major ports and better infrastructure. And the opposite situation happens in rural and remote areas. These income and price differentials can be so huge, exacerbating social inequality and threatening national unity. Lack of domestic connectivity has also made it more difficult to ensure equal delivery of social services, such as health and education, including, in fact, political education. It is a fact that a vibrant civil society and lively political debates that characterize a healthy democracy remain primarily urban phenomena, while in the more remote areas, democratic processes are not always well understood or valued. Ladies and gentlemen, infrastructure development will remain a big challenge for Indonesia for some years to come. The present government has, however, not stood idle. In the last 4 years, the government has delivered a number of policy packages to increase capital spending in infrastructure. The latest Global Competitiveness Report has raised Indonesia's rank by 16 places from the same report in 2009-2010 to still low, number 38, but has been 16 places move up from the previous one, with higher scores for competitiveness and infrastructure. And in the report, CLSA, that I mentioned earlier, also applauded, I quote, some impressive progress in Indonesia's infrastructure, including railway services, the doubling of main ports throughput in 3 years, and the beginning of the MRT construction in Jakarta. And many small airports have been built in remote islands, such as Matahora in Wakatobi, Southeast Sulawesi, Saumlaki in Maluku, Yakuhimo in Papua, and Sarula, the largest geothermal plant located in North Sumatra, will start its construction this year, with some hydropowers to be revitalized. And many more are in the pipeline. But in the coming years, these efforts must be redoubled. The government needs to harness all the potentials of both national and international private sector. Let me now turn to the issue of human capital or human resources. Lately, I have often received reports of companies in Indonesia having difficulties in recruiting skilled laborers and middle-level managers. This is an omen of what I think an even more challenging constraint that is yet to come. Producing high-quality manpower is much more complex and takes much longer time than building roads, bridges, and ports. Here, education is the key. Good education enables people to participate fully in economic, social, and political lives. The challenges in our education revolve around two themes: how to quickly raise the quality of our education at all levels, and how to expand the access to education for all of our citizens. The latest PISA survey, this is a survey about education achievement of students across the globe, revealed an eye-opening result. That is that our 15-year-old students score poorly in PISA tests and are ranked, unfortunately, at the moment, at the second bottom, only above Peru, from 65 participating countries for mathematics, sciences, and reading. The quality gap among schools and teachers in the country is also wide. Children from poor families have lower enrollment rate and higher dropout rate. The challenges is huge, and meaningful actions must be taken right now. However, there has been some progress recently. By law, at least 20% of our state budget is earmarked for education. By 2013, a number of important policies and initiatives have been undertaken, ranging from improving teachers' salaries, implementing teacher certification program, initiating Teach for Indonesia program for young people to be sent to the remote areas, rehabilitating schools and classrooms, introducing new school curricula, developing online learning system, providing subsidies for all registered schools in the country, thanks to the 20% earmark for our budget, and increasing the number of scholarships for poor students at all levels of education. One program worth mentioning here is what we call Lpdp Scholarship, which has been launched last year. This program, by far, is the largest one providing master and PhD scholarship overseas. In 2013, we could only send 625 students from 17,000 applicants. United Kingdom has become the first destination and the Netherlands the second, with 112 students, or 18%, where 11 of them are studying here in Leiden. Ladies and gentlemen, studying abroad is important, not only to equip students with current state-of-the-art knowledge and skills, but also to expose the best and the brightest young Indonesians to different societies, cultures, values, and environment. I hope stronger international linkages, including with the Netherlands, will help to facilitate more Indonesian students to study abroad. And with better education, people do not only gain knowledge, but also know how to use it. Better educated citizens make more productive labor force. But equally, if not even more strategically important, they constitute the foundation of good citizenry and provide appropriate manpower to support and shape the required institution to sustain progress. Ladies and gentlemen, as I stated earlier, economic transformation can only be sustained if it is supported by a congenial social and political environment. And here lies the importance of long-term theme of institutional development. But given the time constraint, here I will only make a general comment on the importance of public, including political institutions. In my view, the focus of our efforts for many years to come is to reform institutions such as the political parties, the bureaucracies, the judiciary and law and order agencies, which form the backbone of what we call the state. And I fully agree with the economist Mansur Olson, who said that only by supplying both public goods and the legal framework for private goods that government can augment the economy. A stable government and incorruptible officials augment the economy best. My own view is that democracy gives the best chance for those goals to be achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, after 15 years since the start of our reformasi in 1998, despite the undoubtedly impressive progress and achievements, one must admit that Indonesia's democracy still has some way to go before becoming fully consolidated. One key to consolidating democracy and ensuring that democratic institutions will deliver welfare is to select candidates who are greatest in civic excellence and best at identifying the common goods. Civil society and the media can play significant roles in informing the public to ensure that only truly deserving candidates would be elected to represent the people or to lead the country. On April the 9th, next month, Indonesia will hold a parliamentary election, while the presidential election will take place on July the 9th, this year also. The current administration has strong commitment to ensure that the political transition process remains peaceful and smooth. Democracy provides an opportunity for people to decide who should have the right to rule. It is up to the people whether they want to use this opportunity or not. It is the same will of the people that would determine whether Indonesia's democracy will flourish or fail. Because good laws and sensible regulations or policies can only be generated by sound political institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to conclude the main points of my talk. As a developing country in the globalized world, Indonesia never lacks challenges and problems. Despite the fact that growth has been robust and the economy has moved toward modern sectors, the government needs to continuously improve national productivity, which is the key for successful economic transformation. In spite of the multitude of problems that Indonesia faces, in the next few decades, we should concentrate our efforts on 3 fronts: infrastructures, human resources, and institutions. Many problems that we face have roots in one form or another of the weaknesses in these 3 areas. Top urgency should be given to infrastructure development. Poor infrastructures are currently the most binding constraint for growth and improving the quality of life. We have lagged far behind our neighbors and badly need catching up. Harnessing the potential of the private sector is imperative. Domestic, especially inter-island connectivity, should be given the highest priority, for it is fundamental for national economic, political, and social cohesion and survival. Some progress has been made in Indonesia's infrastructure development, including in developing sustainable energy. This government and the next must sustain its commitment to keep all these initiatives rolling. The second major constraint to progress is the quality of human resources. Education is the key. The challenges in our education policy revolves around 2 themes: how to raise the quality of our education at all levels, and how to expand the access to education for all of our citizens. The goals are to raise the knowledge and skills required to improve participation in the labor market and to supply the necessary human capital for developing our institutions. Institutions are the ultimate determinant of sustained progress. Building good institutions have the longest gestation period. Hence, we must start now and must do it systematically. Consolidating our democracy is the key to a sustained national progress. The quality of the upcoming elections in April and July will ensure that the transition of power is peaceful and smooth, and that the elections are effective as a filtering device to select good politicians. Thank you. Shall I give it on? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your inspiring lecture. I think not just for your lecture, but most of all for your inspiring vision. I think you just presented here in this auditorium. My name is Wim van der Doel. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities. We met also in Jakarta.
Yes.
And you also agreed to answer a few questions
Yes.
from the audience. And since this is a university, we thought it's appropriate that students will ask you the questions.
Please. Please.
And the first question will be from here.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Bapak Wakil Presiden Republik Indonesia, Bapak Boediono yang kami hormati. As you mentioned before, that this year will be a very important year for Indonesia because we will have a democratic election soon in April. So the candidates for free democratic elections usually spend large sums of money on their political campaigns. And after a candidate is elected into Senayan, often their first question is how they can recover the money they spent before the election. So one of the answers for that question is corruption.
Yeah.
So in cases like this, the fact that campaigning for the democratic election requires large financial investments leads to more corruptions. What is your opinion about this? And thank you.
Well,
Your name.
My name is Ananda. I'm a PhD student from Leiden University, Center for Linguistics.
linguistic, right. This one, can
Yes.
I use this? Okay. Well, thank you for the question. Democracy always has its costs. Electoral democracy requires some resources to implement. But the question, of course, as I agree with you, that how to minimize the cost of this electoral democracy. No, if you look at from the dark side, that is what your story is about, then everybody would give up democracy in Indonesia. I would not give up because there has been some systematic progress right from the beginning when we decided to switch from authoritarianism to democracy. Well, we saw that. But so far, I think we are on the right track. There are many examples in the world that transition stopped in the middle of some stage, long before the process reached our stage now. Our stage now is, in my view, is the stage of consolidation of democracy. Now, what I mean by, if you look at from the brighter side, in fact, Indonesia has been progressing, including what you're asking about. The cost of being elected is getting more and more, well, disconnected with your wealth. This is not a general, what you call a process that quickly you could observe, but it is happening. Just follow the elections in the past few years. There are young people, I guess without big capital, entered politics and got elected. The mayor of Bandung, the mayor of Surabaya, the mayor of, the governor of Jakarta, and many. This is not really something that you should say that there is no progress in this area. Cost of money, of course, matters. I agree with you. But the trend is that more and more now people can get elected without having big money at the outset. Two other factors that support this trend is one is our voters, if you watch that, are very, very rational. They may accept money for something, but they will vote for something that comes from their heart. that is happening. The use of IT, noise spreading, that also lowered the cost for those who want to become a candidate, because it's now it's happening in Jakarta. If you compare 2014 campaign process and the campaign processes before in 2009 and 2004, now you can see in Jakarta and elsewhere in the region of the country that amassing a large number of people is not the main strategy. Now they're using IT. Cheaper and more effective. And for the voters, the use of IT has also the benefits, more information for them. So I'm quite optimistic that our democracy will follow this trend. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another question over here. Please first tell you your name.
Your Excellency, yang saya hormati Bapak Profesor Boediono. My name is Maria Ingrid Nabuboga. I'm an MA student in the colonial and global history. My question would be related to protection of minority in Indonesia. As we all know, there are quite a lot of minority groups, particularly religious minority, and in the past few years had been the victim of attack and violent attack and assault by this radical Islamic movement, such as the FBI or the Islamic Defenders Front. And I was wondering why the government seems to do like less action against the action of this particular group, such as FBI, and what does the government do in order to protect the minority groups in Indonesia? Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. This is an issue that I think we should be solving as a nation in the years to come. But I'm not being apologetic, but in any society, there is always the peripheral group in the spectrum that somehow has a different view than compared to the mainstream. And sometimes they resort to some action that are not lawful and so on. In almost any society, you have the extreme in the spectrum. Some, of course, do rather violently to express their view. Some are more peacefully, but they exist. In countries like Indonesia, of course, emerging society, the risk of violence is greater. And I think this is regrettable that any such peripheral extreme groups do express their view that way. This is certainly not democratic way to do that. The government has actually done what we could to uphold legally the law. There are quite a number of actually conviction by the police with regard to those who are caught to do violence. And may not be well publicized, but it is being done. May not be enough. You may see this, it's not enough. Do a bit more firm, with firm hand and so on. But again, you cannot go back to pre-reformasi. This is a very open, transparent society now in Indonesia. In the past, you might have done something quietly and everybody seems to be feeling that, well, there's no violence and so on. But of course, now we have to use the rules, democratic rules, and therefore we have to follow the democratic and transparent upholding of law. Lack of capacity of our police, I think it is one of the reasons why we cannot catch all those violence, those who break the violence and so on, anywhere, anytime. This is one. I think we should accept that. But I think we will try to improve the capacity of our police in upholding laws. But I must mention this. You can uphold, you can eliminate violence in a variety of ways, especially for developing countries. For a country like Indonesia, where you have multicultural groups, where you have multi-religions, there must be also an element of cultural approach to eliminate violences like this. Not just simply legal or implementing by law purely. I think you must do that. And I have the strong feeling that you have to use both of this. And I think we need to do more of both, I agree. But given our situation, where our society is so diverse, I think we should try to be wise enough to use both approaches. In those who study Japanese culture might know this expression. This is part of the wisdom of Japanese philosophy of life. It says like this: Suro tiro jayaningrat, lebur dening pangastuti. Which means soft power always prevails over hard powers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's also now time to ask you a question on the economy.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Stephanie Straczynski. I'm a master's student here at the university. My question is, what strengths do you think Indonesia can maximize to improve its standing in the international market without negatively impacting its domestic one, especially in the face of challenges like corruption and competition from China?
Thank you, Stephanie. I think the answer to your question has been covered in my lecture. 3 things. Infrastructure, human capital, and institution. This will solve your concern. Sorry to answer in short answer, but that's, I think, the answer to your question.
Well, a short answer, of course, gives room for one final question.
Yes, thank you, Your Excellency, for your presentation. My name is Ashwin. I'm a master's student of Asian Studies, and my question is in context of Indonesia-Netherlands relations. Does Indonesia see the Netherlands as a gateway of Europe? And how can the Netherlands or even Leiden University make this a reality or even more of a reality?
Yes. Afrin, yeah? Your name is Afrin. Your name?
Ashwin.
Ashwin. Ashwin, thank you for your question. Yes, we do. I think Indonesian sees Netherlands as the most promising gateway for us to access the European market. And conversely, I think also true that the Netherlands has should be some benefits in looking Indonesia as its gateway to ASEAN. We are the biggest economy in ASEAN, and we will have in 1 or 2 years' time some important progress in unifying the market. So I think if we can look at that that way. I think that should be to our common, our mutual benefits. Indonesia always see the Netherlands as something rather special. We have common history. Some part are not very rosy history, but we have common history. So I think we should try to capitalize this rather a deep mutual understanding for the future. The past is the past. Get some lessons, what we could do for the future. I think the future is much more important for our two countries. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for all your very frank and open answers to the questions. And I think I gave over to the Rector Magnificus.
Can I get on? Okay.
Your Excellency, as Rector Magnificus of this university, I want to congratulate you on this very open-minded and honest, great speech. You're not only Vice President of a very important country, you're also a great teacher. So thank you very much again. The future of Indonesia looks promising, although we realize that a lot of work is still ahead. You already mentioned that in your speech. And we hope Leiden can be a trusted partner of this Indonesia of the 21st century. Your Excellency, as I earlier mentioned, the motto of the University, Praesidium Libertatis, Bastion of Freedom. Freedom is a concept with many aspects, and we consider the way Franklin Roosevelt defined freedom during the Second World War as inspiring. He spoke of 4 freedoms: the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of worship, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear. And when we look at these 4 freedoms, Indonesia has made remarkable progress since the end of the New Order. Indonesia is now a country in which the press can be critical of the government and in which the Constitution provides all persons the right to worship according to their own religion or belief, and in which the government respects religious freedom. Indonesia has remained a tolerant society, even if fanatics and radical groups want us to think differently. Your Excellency, the cabinets of Indonesia, of which you have been part of, have also been highly successful in giving many Indonesians freedom from want. As State Minister of National Planning and Development, Minister of Finance, Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Governor of the Bank of Indonesia, and Vice President, you have worked in the public interest to make Indonesia a better place to live. As the World Bank states in a recent report, Indonesia is now one of Asia Pacific's most vibrant democracies that has maintained political stability and emerged as a confident middle-income country. You have been successful as an academic and as a responsible politician. Your calm and careful approach to getting things done have served your country well in times of political and economic turmoil. Your Excellency, more and more people in Indonesia live a life free of want, and this has been also your accomplishment. Indonesia works to protect the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech. Critical questions can be asked, and they are answered as we witnessed today. And therefore, it's my great honor to present you the Prince William of Orange Medal. This medal is meant to be awarded to visiting national and international dignitaries in recognition of outstanding political and social merit. Leiden University wants to honor you for your ability to translate scholarly insights into practical political measures, as we have seen today, for your dedicated work to develop Indonesia's economy, to strengthen Indonesia's democracy, and to reduce social and economic inequality. With your talents, you could have chosen different paths, but you chose to serve your people. So once again, thank you for your visit to Leiden, and now please accept the Prince William of Orange Medal.
Big honor. Great honor for me.
It's a great honor for us.
Thank you.